Hey there, folks. It's Monday and it's time for another books episode. You're listening to MWM Podcast Books, and I'm MaddiE Dawson. And we have a special guest speaker today, and his name is Zaigam. So let's hear it from Zaigam.
Hey everyone, I'm Zaigam. I am a huge bibliophile and I like to read I mostly like to read fiction books, including science fiction and fantasy. And the currently what book I'm reading is called The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. You might have heard of it. It's like a classic in the literature world. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, I was about to ask what book we are going to talk about today, but then Zaigam has revealed it. So the book that we are going to discuss is Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway. It's one of the critical works and a very popular book that's across the world. So let's hear from Zaigam.
Sure. So, The Old Man and the Sea is a very special book to me because I think I've read it around 3 times by now. So the first time I read it was back when I was a teenager, actually. So I saw this like one of my friends. He had this small book on the table, and the cover art looked very fascinating to me. It was like a furious sea, and I was like, it just intrigued me so much to look at it. I picked it up and then asked my friend what's it about, and then he was like, he told me the premise a little bit, but then I picked it up and I actually finished the entire book in one night, one sitting. So at that time, I did enjoy reading it, but I didn't get the entire gist of it. Like, okay, I got the premise, but what it actually meant and what it was trying to convey. Then later on, I picked it up once again when I was traveling from my place to another city in a train. But at that time, I couldn't finish the entire book in one sitting. But still, I read like halfway through. Recently, in the book club that we have here in the community, so this book was again picked up, and I was so glad that okay, again I'll get to read that. So I recently reread it, and it was an absolute delight for me to read it. So do you have any questions?
Yeah, talk to us about the story.
Sure, sure. So this book is about an old man who is into fishing. This is deep sea fishing we are talking about, and there's this boy who is also part of the story. He has like a minor character, but then as the story progresses, you get to know that it's actually not that of a minor character because the old man keeps remembering him whenever he's struggling. So yeah, essentially it's about this old man who goes into the sea to catch a fish because it's been a while since he has actually caught a big fish. So he wants to prove himself, and he's getting old, and he just ventures out into the unknown, and eventually he does catch a very big fish. And it's all about the struggle and resilience he shows in that moment. So he catches this swordfish, which is called marlin, I suppose, in their language, and it's about their struggle that the fish puts through, and then the old man puts through, and the philosophy that he puts behind his words. And as I said, he keeps remembering the boy, and the way he has lived his life. He keeps on retrospecting on a lot of stuff, and reading it is a very meditative experience in a way, because like as normal people, we can't really fathom how it would feel like to go into the sea and catch a fish. And like fishing is one of those tasks which requires a lot of patience. So yeah, like once you read it, it's like a very meditative and calm experience. So it was pretty intriguing. So that's pretty much the story, and I don't want to spoil the ending, so I'll keep that for you. So
Okay, so what was the single most aspect that was very impressive for you? The writing or characterization or the symbolism or philosophy that the story conveyed?
sure, sure. So for me, it would be the narration and the writing itself, because Ernest Hemingway, for those of you who don't know, he was actually into hunting and fishing, and he was a really wild character in a way. Since I can't put it in another way. So there's this fact about him that he was in a plane crash, like two plane crashes in a single day. Now, how wild is that, right? So when I read it, my mind was blown. I was like, okay. And then I read that he's into fishing and bullfighting, and he's considered one of those American macho figures in the world of literature. So yeah, that was pretty interesting to read. And the way he has written the story, it's such a small book. It's a novel essentially, but he has still put so much into such little words, because he hasn't described the event for too long, but then the words he has used to describe those events, they carry a lot of meaning and depth. So that was pretty interesting to read for me.
So, how did you come across this book?
So as I said, like when I was like when I was a teenager, I saw this on my friend's table one day. He was an avid reader. He used to read a lot of books. And the cover art just blew me away. I mean, it's once you look at it, it's like you're deeply lost into the sea world. And I actually, if I see like a cover, they say that don't judge a book by its cover, but I do it all the time. If I see an interesting cover art, I'm like, okay, I have to read this one. That's what happened to me with Dune also. So I mean, I didn't even knew that like the book existed. But once I see the cover art on online, and this boy standing in the desert, and it's so atmospheric, I'm like, okay, I need to pick this up. Same thing happened with this one, The Old Man and the Sea. So
Have you read any other works from Ernest Hemingway?
I haven't read any of his other works yet, but I'm surely trying to explore more of his work, because he's a prolific writer. He has written quite a lot of books and letters. Yeah.
So, what is the one thing that you want to say to the audience or the bibliophiles why they must pick up this book?
Oh, absolutely. So, if you're into literature, I would highly recommend you pick this book up, because and if you want to improve your craft of writing as well, right? So, if you ask any literature enthusiast or a writer, and if you ask them who's your inspiration or what books you would recommend or what author to read, they'd probably recommend Ernest Hemingway at some point. And that's the reason for that being because, as I said, he writes in such subtle ways. He uses very minimal words and very nominal words, but still he conveys the meaning in such profound ways that it's hard to believe that it could be said in such few words, something like that. Yeah. I remember this one copywriting article I was reading, and they mentioned Hemingway at one point. So I think he wrote like a short slogan or something for a brand, which went something like "Baby shoes never worn." So if you think about it, it's so smart. Like, of course it's never worn because it's baby shoes, and that's how you sell stuff. So yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I think this is your first time doing a voice podcast for books, talking about books. How does that experience feel?
I love to talk about books and films, and any chance I get, I'll not miss that, because it's hard to find like-minded people who read the same stuff, and it's even hard to find people who actually read stuff these days. So yeah, I mean, whenever I get time to talk about books and movies, and even I write reviews as well online, so sure. And I'm also trying to go to different podcasts, and even I had plans of starting my own podcast, but that never culminated into anything. So I'm glad that you proposed the idea, and here I am talking to about my favorite books.
Well, you can still think about it right now. This is like a platform. You can explore your voice and then soon make your own podcast.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'd love to, man. Yeah, I mean, it's a nice experience, and I'd love to talk about the other books that I've been reading or the movies, especially the movies. I can go on and on about movies, man.
Yeah, Zaigam is going to be a guest speaker for the movie podcast as well, and hope we'll hear more episodes from him.
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to do that.
Thanks a lot, Zaigam, and I hope you guys enjoyed this short episode on MWM Podcast Books. We'll soon catch up with many guest speakers, and thank you, Zaigam, for so much joining us. We'll see. We believe that we will see you again.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for having me, and I had a blast talking to you. Sure.
Bye bye.